Hello my beloved friends, and welcome back to the Untold Stories. Now I know a lot of you use these videos to sleep, so before you drift off I thought it would be a crazy idea if everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world. Also like and subscribe if you are enjoying the case. Right, let's get comfy and relax and let's begin with story number 1. In the remote Albanian village of Kastrati, nestled among the rugged mountains of the north, a chilling tale unfolded one fateful night. The villagers, known for their deep-rooted traditions and superstitions, had long whispered about the presence of a malevolent force that roamed the forests after dark. It was on a moonless night that the terror began. A young couple, Ilir and Anna, had recently moved to Kastrati, seeking a peaceful life away from the bustle of the city. They settled into an old stone cottage at the edge of the village, surrounded by dense woods. The locals welcomed them with warmth, but there was an underlying caution in their eyes, as if they knew something the newcomers did not. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, Anna ventured into the forest to gather herbs. She had heard tales of a rare flower that bloomed only under the cover of darkness, its petals said to possess healing properties. Determined to find it, she wandered deeper into the woods than she had ever dared before. As the night grew colder and the forest darker, Anna realized she had lost her way. Panic set in as the sounds of the forest seemed to close in around her. That's when she saw it, a figure standing motionless among the trees. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but as she approached, the figure became clearer. It was a woman, her face obscured by a hood, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Anna's heart raced as the woman spoke in a voice that sent chills down her spine. "You seek the flower, but it comes at a price." Before Anna could respond, the woman vanished into the darkness, leaving behind an eerie silence. Terrified, Anna hurried back to the village, but the encounter haunted her thoughts. The next day, Anna fell ill. Her skin grew pale, and a strange weakness overtook her. Ilir, frantic with worry, sought the help of the village healer, an elderly woman named Drida. Drida listened intently to Anna's story and nodded gravely. "The witch of Kastrati," Drida murmured. "She has claimed another soul." Drida explained that the witch was a vengeful spirit, a woman who had been wronged in life and now roamed the forests, preying on the innocent. To save Anna, they would need to confront the witch in her lair and perform an ancient ritual to banish her spirit. That night, Ilir and Drida ventured into the forest, armed with herbs and charms to protect them. They followed the path Anna had described, eventually coming upon a clearing where the air felt unnaturally cold. In the center stood an ancient oak tree, its gnarled roots twisting into the earth like the fingers of a giant hand. As they approached, the witch appeared, her form shifting between that of a beautiful woman and a monstrous creature. Her eyes burned with fury as she hissed, "You dare challenge me?" Drida stepped forward, chanting words in a language Ilir did not understand. The witch screeched, her form writhing in agony as if the very earth was rejecting her. With a final, blood-curdling scream, the witch dissolved into a cloud of smoke, leaving behind only the scent of burning incense. Anna's condition improved immediately, and within days, she was back to her old self. The villagers, though relieved, remained wary. They knew that evil could return when least expected. Years passed, and Ilir and Anna continued their life in Kastrati. But every now and then, on moonless nights, they would hear whispers in the wind and feel a chill in the air, a reminder that some spirits never truly leave. And so, the legend of the Witch of Castrati endured, a tale passed down through generations, warning all who dared to venture into the forest after dark. Now let's move to story number 2. In the heart of Snowdonia, nestled between the Glassland and Colwyn rivers, lies Bedgelert, a picturesque village steeped in legend and history. Its name, often believed to mean Gellert's grave, is derived from the tale of a faithful hound named Gellert, who, in a tragic twist of fate, was killed by his master, Prince Llywelyn the Great, under the mistaken belief that he had harmed the prince's child. The village is also home to St. Mary's Church, which stands on the site of a 7th century Augustinian priory. Today, Bedgelert is a popular tourist destination, known for its scenic beauty and rich folklore. It was supposed to be a weekend retreat. A scenic, restful escape from their burned-out London lives. George had booked the cottage near Bedgelert, right by the River Glassland, for him and his 3 closest friends, Oliver, Amelia, and Freya. Nestled beneath the mountains of Snowdonia, the place looked perfect online: stone walls, thick forests, absolute peace. None of them noticed the iron nails embedded above the door when they arrived. None of them asked why every mirror had been removed. And none of them believed the warning from the old woman in the village shop, who'd whispered in Welsh behind her breath and stopped short when George asked for translation. That night, the fire wouldn't light. The place was ice cold, though the weather outside was mild. Oliver found a rusted hatchet in the shed and started splitting kindling while Freya laughed, sipping red wine and filming TikToks. Amelia, however, wasn't laughing. She stood in the hallway, looking into the back room, a narrow room that hadn't been photographed in the rental listing. A foul smell seeped out from the half-open door. Rotting meat and something else. Something older. She didn't say anything. Just slowly shut the door and walked away, hoping no one noticed the way her hands shook. That night, something watched them. It didn't knock. It didn't break windows. But every single one of them, without exception, woke up gasping at exactly 3:07 a.m., feeling like their lungs were filled with wet smoke and their skin had been kissed by frost. George went to the living room and found the fire, still unlit, glowing faintly red from within. But there was no wood in it. No embers. Just ash. And deep in the ash, bones. The next day, Freya wanted to leave. "I'm serious," she said, pacing. "Something's wrong with this place. I heard whispering last night. In my room. And I smelled smoke." Oliver teased her, called it village paranoia. "Maybe the ghost dog of Bedgelert wants to cuddle you in your sleep." But Amelia just stared out the window, her skin pale and cold like stone. "No one leaves," she muttered. "What?" George asked. She turned, her voice colder than the air. "If we leave now, it follows us." George didn't believe her. But when he tried to start the car, it wouldn't turn over. The battery was fine. The engine was fine. But the keys shook violently in the ignition, like something beneath the car was pulling against them. Back inside, the cottage was darker. Windows wouldn't open. The lights flickered even when the generator kicked on. Something moved through the rooms, but never fast enough to be caught. Just long enough to be sensed. Glimpsed. Smelled. Like ash, rotted hair, and mold. And then they found the crawl space. Behind a boarded-over panel in the back room Amelia had sealed off, George found it, a narrow hole leading beneath the house, just tall enough to crouch in. At the bottom was a slab covered in Welsh carvings and rotted candle wax. And something else. A face. In the stone. Pressed into the slab from underneath. It opened its eyes. Oliver screamed first. Not when he saw the face. Not even when the ground shook. He screamed when Freya began bleeding from her eyes. She collapsed, convulsing, gasping for breath, her skin breaking out in burns like she was being cooked from the inside. When George tried to pull her away, her fingers broke off in his hands, soft like wax. Oliver panicked and ran into the woods. Amelia didn't chase him. George did. But the woods didn't look the same. The trees twisted, the sky churned with black clouds, and the wind whispered in guttural, wet voices. George called Oliver's name again and again until he found what was left of him. It was hanging in the trees. Upside down. Skinned. His mouth was stretched into a perfect circle, like he'd died mid-scream. Nailed to his forehead was a rusty horseshoe. George vomited, then ran. He stumbled back into the cottage, where he found Amelia kneeling by the hearth, whispering in a language he didn't understand. She told me it would be quick, she said calmly, eyes glowing red in the firelight. But she lied. Who? George asked, shaking. The woman buried under the house. The one they burned for witchcraft. She's not dead. Not really. You brought me back here. You always bring me back. Every time. What are you talking about? He screamed, stepping back. Amelia looked up at him, no longer Amelia. Her face was splitting down the center, revealing a second face beneath, black and blistered, with yellow eyes and a long, crackling tongue that pulsed like fire. I was the one they couldn't burn. So they buried me. And now I burn them. George turned to flee, but the house was gone. No doors. No windows. Just stone. Stone and fire. The hearth exploded. Freya's burned body rose from it like a puppet, skin bubbling and dripping, her empty eye sockets staring into George's soul. Her jaw hung open, and a voice that wasn't hers poured out. You lit the fire, George. You brought them here. No, he whimpered. I didn't. But he had. He'd read about the legends. The witch burnings. The bans on mirrors. The cursed crawl space. He'd wanted to film it. He'd wanted content. And now it wanted him. They found the house 2 days later. What was left of it? Firefighters said the stone cottage burned from the inside out, every stone cracked, as if something had exploded beneath the foundation. No signs of arson. No fuel. Just fire. And blood. The bodies were unidentifiable. Just scorched meat and ashes. Except one. George's face was left intact, nailed to the inside of the hearth. Tourists still passed through Bedgelert. Still hiked the Glassland River Trail. still stop for pictures where the legendary dog is buried. But locals know better. No one rents that cottage anymore. Not after what happened. And no one walks alone near the woods when the wind is blowing west. Because sometimes, if you listen hard enough, you can still hear screaming from beneath the hearth, and the fire lights itself. As the echoes of Story 2 fade into memory, something unsettling lingers, an itch at the back of your mind, like a truth half remembered. But before you can grasp it fully, the scene shifts. You find yourself standing at the edge of another quiet town, one that seems too perfect, too still. The streets are clean. The smiles are polite. The houses are lined up like porcelain dolls in a display case. But something isn't right. Because this town had a secret no one spoke about. And once you hear it, you'll wish you hadn't. Welcome to Story 3. Rottingdean, a picturesque village nestled along the southern coast of England, boasts a rich history dating back to the Saxon era. Its name, derived from Rhoda's people, reflects its ancient origins. The village has witnessed significant events, including the French raid of 1377 during the 100 Years' War, which led to the burning of the church and the loss of many lives. Over the centuries, Rottingdean evolved from a small fishing community to a favored retreat for artists and writers in the 19th century. Today, it retains its charm with cobbled streets, historic buildings, and the iconic Beacon Mill, a restored windmill that stands as a testament to the village's enduring heritage. In the heart of East Sussex lies Rottingdean, a village where the sea whispers tales of the past and the cliffs stand as silent witnesses to centuries of history. Among its cobbled streets and flint cottages, George Taylor had found his sanctuary. A man of routine and precision, he had seamlessly integrated into the community, his presence as unobtrusive as the tides that lapped against the shore. George's life was a meticulous tapestry of normalcy. He rose with the dawn, tended to his garden with the care of a seasoned horticulturist, and spent his evenings reading in the dim glow of his study lamp. To the villagers, he was the epitome of reliability. Yet, beneath this veneer of tranquility, a darker undercurrent pulsed, one that had remained hidden for years. Oliver, a young journalist from Manchester, had arrived in Rottingdean with aspirations of capturing the essence of English seaside life for his latest article. The village, with its quaint charm and historical allure, seemed the perfect backdrop. He rented a modest flat above the local bakery and immersed himself in the rhythms of coastal life. It was on the third day of his stay that Oliver first encountered George. The older man had approached him in the village square, offering a warm handshake and a welcoming smile. "I hear you're writing about our little corner of the world," George had remarked. "If you need any insights or stories, don't hesitate to ask." Grateful for the gesture, Oliver accepted the offer. Over the next few days, he spent time with George, learning about the village's history and its transformation over the centuries. George spoke of the French raid in 1377, the rise of the Quaker movement, and the village's evolution from a fishing community to an artistic haven. His knowledge was vast, and his passion for Rottingdean's past was evident. en.wikipedia.org +1 mybereitonandhope.org.uk +1 One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sea, George invited Oliver to his home. The cottage, nestled at the edge of the village, was a picture of serenity. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and lavender. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with volumes on history, art, and botany. A fire crackled in the hearth, its flames dancing in the dim light. As they sat by the fire, George shared more personal anecdotes, tales of his ancestors who had lived in Rottingdean for generations, of the secrets the cliffs held, and of the village's hidden past. Oliver listened intently, captivated by the depth of George's knowledge and the warmth of his presence. However, as the night wore on, Oliver began to notice subtle oddities. The clocks in the room ticked in unison, their chimes resonating with an eerie precision. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, creeping along the walls as if alive. And there was a peculiar smell in the air, a faint, metallic scent that lingered just at the edge of his consciousness. Shaking off the unease, Oliver attributed it to the unfamiliar surroundings and the late hour. He excused himself, thanking George for his hospitality and promising to return the following day. As he stepped into the cool night air, the village seemed different, darker, more oppressive. The streets, once charming, now appeared foreboding. The distant sound of the waves crashing against the cliffs was drowned out by the pounding of his own heartbeat. The next morning, Oliver awoke with a sense of foreboding gnawing at him. He decided to visit the local library to conduct further research for his article. As he perused the shelves, he stumbled upon a collection of old newspapers detailing the history of Rottingdean. One article, dated 1923, caught his eye. It spoke of a series of disappearances in the village, all occurring over a span of several decades. The victims were never found, and the cases remained unsolved. A chill ran down Oliver's spine as he read the names of the missing individuals. Each one had been a visitor to Rottingdean, much like himself. The article mentioned that the disappearances coincided with the construction of George's cottage. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end as he realized the unsettling connection. Determined to uncover the truth, Oliver began to investigate further. He spoke to the villagers, piecing together fragments of information. Many were reluctant to discuss the past, their faces clouded with fear and suspicion. However, one elderly woman, Mrs. Abernathy, confided in him. "George Taylor," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He wasn't always George Taylor. He was someone else before. Someone darker." Mrs. Abernathy explained that decades ago, a man named Edward Blackwood had lived in the cottage. He was a renowned botanist who had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. Rumors had circulated that he had been involved in occult practices, and some believed he had made a pact with dark forces. As Oliver delved deeper into the village's history, he uncovered more disturbing details. The disappearances had coincided with significant events in the village's past, each one marked by tragedy and loss. The pattern was undeniable. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Oliver decided to confront George. He arrived at the cottage, his heart pounding in his chest. George greeted him with his usual warm smile, but there was something in his eyes, something cold and calculating. "I know what you've been looking into," George said, his voice low and menacing. "And I know what you found." Oliver took a step back, fear gripping him. "What are you?" he demanded. George's smile widened. "I am the keeper of Rottingdean's secrets," he replied. "And now, you are part of them." Before Oliver could react, George lunged at him, overpowering him with unnatural strength. He dragged Oliver into the study, where the mirror stood, a silent witness to countless horrors. As George prepared to end Oliver's life, the mirror began to glow, its surface rippling like water. A voice emanated from it, ancient and powerful. "Enough," the voice commanded. George froze, his expression one of confusion and fear. The mirror's glow intensified, enveloping him in its light. "You have served your purpose," the voice intoned. "But your time has come to an end." With a final, deafening crack, the mirror shattered, and George was gone. Oliver, shaken but alive, stumbled out of the cottage. The storm had subsided, and the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. He returned to his flat, his mind racing with the events of the night. In the days that followed, Oliver left Rottingdean, never to return. He published his article, but the words felt hollow, the memories too painful to recount. The village continued to thrive, its secrets buried beneath layers of time and history. But when the wind rises off the sea and curls through Rottingdean's narrow lanes, it carries more than salt, it carries whispers from the earth below, where the bones never stop screaming. As the silence of Story 3 fades, something colder settles in. It's not just fear anymore, it's recognition. Because what's coming next isn't just strange, it feels personal. And this time, it's not the town hiding something. It's you. Welcome to Story 4. In the heart of Florence, Italy, where golden sunsets bleed across the Arno and the streets sing with Renaissance echoes, the last thing anyone expected was a night of pure dread. It started in Piazza del Duomo. Adriana had just broken up with Elias. After 3 years of love, art school, and late-night walks by the river, he ended it with a voice so cold she didn't recognize it. Friday night. Her heart shattered. But what neither of them knew was that what tore them apart wasn't human. Not entirely. At 11:32 p.m., the bells of Giotto's Campanile, the bell tower, began to toll. Only they weren't supposed to. There were no scheduled chimes, no ceremonies, no tourists to entertain. Just an eerie, unprompted, 12 gongs that echoed through the stone bones of the city like a forgotten warning. Adriana was sitting on the marble steps, mascara running, when the first bell hit. She froze. It wasn't just the sound. It was the vibration beneath her feet. Like something ancient had stirred. A man across the square, an American tourist, turned around, confused, looked up, and then collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. Dead. Eyes open. No wounds. Just gone. Before anyone could even scream, the lights in the square blinked out. And then came the singing. A soft, whispering chant that had no source. It slithered through the alleys and crept down from the cathedral's spires. Latin? Greek? No one knew. But everyone who heard it felt it in their teeth. Adriana's phone wouldn't turn on. No signal. The streetlights came back, but they flickered, not in chaos, but with rhythm. Like someone was using them to speak. She ran. Her boots thudded across the cobblestones as shadows danced where they shouldn't. She turned a corner, straight into Alex and Clara, her classmates. They had blood on their hands. "It's not ours," Clara said breathlessly. "What the hell is happening?" Adriana screamed. Alex pointed toward the cathedral, his face ashen. "The Duomo, it opened." "What?" "The inside. It's changing. The floor. The altar." Everything's wrong. They all turned. And there, framed in moonlight, the great doors of the cathedral stood wide open. Only the floor inside was moving. Waves. Stone undulating like liquid. Figures walking through it, priests in red robes, faceless, silent. The organ was playing itself, discordant and furious, and the frescoes on the dome above were bleeding. I saw my father in there, Clara whispered. He's been dead for 10 years. From behind them, another bell rang. Just one this time. Everything stopped. And then they heard it, footsteps, dozens, maybe hundreds, coming from every alley. But no one was there. I think we're being hunted, Alex muttered, gripping Adriana's hand. And then the city clock struck midnight. Suddenly, every statue in Piazza della Signoria turned their heads. David, Perseus, Hercules, all twisted, slowly, toward the square. Adriana screamed. They bolted. They made it to the Uffizi gallery. It was locked. Alex smashed a window. Inside, paintings shimmered and moved when no one looked. Botticelli's Primavera showed Venus with black eyes. The angels in the Annunciation had mouths full of teeth. They're watching us, Clara whispered. We have to leave the city, Adriana said. We need to find someone, anyone. But that's when the curator walked in. Only he wasn't walking. He was gliding. His skin peeled. His eyes glassy. And then he spoke in a voice that wasn't his own. You opened the gate. The lights shattered. Clara screamed. When they turned to run, Clara was gone. No noise. No struggle. Just gone. Alex dragged Adriana through emergency exits into the back alley. The city had changed. The roads were wrong. The Arno River ran black. Bridges led to nowhere. The air buzzed like a hive of electricity. Where is everyone? She gasped. No one left. I think we're the last. They turned toward the hills. The only way out was through the Boboli Gardens, a place of calm, beauty, and now something else. The statues there were older. Roman. Pagan. And they were singing. Mouths open in a wordless chant that vibrated the leaves. The moon above wasn't right, too close, too large. It had a crack in it. Adriana grabbed Alex. We make it to the hilltop. We'll see the city. Maybe we'll understand. But at the top, they didn't find clarity. They found a mirror. Just standing there in the grass. Ornate. Ancient. Italian gold. It showed Florence empty. Dead. Black fog rolling in. And behind them, a figure. Clara. But her eyes were bleeding. Her voice was not hers. You didn't just wake them, she whispered. You invited them. Alex reached for her, and his skin turned gray. He dropped, choking, veins black. Adriana screamed, too late. The reflection behind her began to move on its own. Not mimicking, leading. It smiled. Her own face smiled back at her. But it wasn't her anymore. and then it stepped out of the mirror. Adriana's last memory was of the grass turning red, of her body convulsing, of Florence disappearing into a curtain of shadow. But what truly opened the gate wasn't her. It was Elias. 3 nights earlier, he had met with Matteo Il Toro Gravini, a mid-tier Florence capo. Elias wanted to fund his art gallery expansion. Matteo wanted something else: blood, territory, fear. The deal? Elias would let Matteo use his gallery to smuggle a new synthetic hallucinogen, a drug not yet on the market, codenamed Ombra. Problem was, Ombra wasn't a chemical drug. It was ancient, ritualistic, recovered by Sicilian diggers in a catacomb beneath Palermo, powdered from the fossilized marrow of something not human. Matteo didn't care. He wanted profits. And soon, addicts were overdosing across Tuscany. Not dying, disappearing, saying they saw angels, heard bells, walked into the sky. Elias knew. He had taken it. Once. He had seen what lay beyond. The mirror. The priests. The true Florence underneath Florence. And it had spoken to him. Bring her. He left Adriana that night not because he didn't love her, but because he was already marked. Used. A willing vessel. And now, 3 days after the night the bells rang 12, the city remains silent. No answers. No bodies. Only rumors. That the statues still move. That the frescoes weep. And that if you listen closely, in the depths of the Uffizi basement, you can still hear Clara crying. But her voice isn't hers. Far from the blood-stained backrooms and silent deals of the underworld, beyond the ruined streets of Florence, across the continent in a place where shadows stretch longer and silence weighs heavier, another city stirs. The names are different. The danger is not. Here, power doesn't come with a gun, it comes without warning. Welcome to Story 5. In northern Ukraine, 110 kilometers from Kiev, lies a place frozen in time, Chernobyl. Since April 26, 1986, when Reactor 4 exploded during a botched safety test, the surrounding exclusion zone has become a ghost landscape of ash, decay, and whispers. They say it's just radiation that haunts the ruins. They're wrong. In September 2024, for European urban explorers, Alex, Elias, Clara, and Olivia crossed into the zone, bypassing patrols and checkpoints under the cover of night. Their goal: spend a full night inside Reactor 4, documenting every chilling detail for social media fame. Their fixer was a former Soviet liquidator named Dmitry Antonov, one of the men who buried the fires in '86 under graphite and lies. Now gray, worn, and half-drunk, he told them one thing before handing over the gear. If you see light in the dark, it means it's awake. Turn around. Don't let it see you. They laughed. But he wasn't joking. They reached Pripyat just before midnight. The town was a shell, classrooms still littered with notebooks, toys on beds, the Ferris wheel rusted stiff. Time had stopped. Yet something unseen moved. By 2 a.m., they reached the new safe confinement, a massive steel arch entombing the melted remains of Reactor 4. Most assume it's airtight, impenetrable. But the explorers found a cracked maintenance duct, half covered in ivy and rot. A forgotten path inside. As they crawled through, their Geiger counters screamed, then suddenly fell dead. Blank screens. Signal loss? Clara asked. No, Elias said. It's like someone cut the readings. The deeper they went, the warmer it got, a stale, chemical heat that tasted metallic. Sweat soaked through their suits. Olivia felt a burning in her gums. They reached the lower corridor, a long passage of corroded pipes and broken lights. Then they saw it. Boot prints. Fresh. Human. Not theirs. 4 sets of prints in the dust. Then 5. Alex froze. Who's ahead of us? No one answered. At 3:09 a.m., they reached what remained of the control room, where the disaster began. The consoles were scorched. Dials melted. The walls blackened. Yet someone, recently, had been there. A journal lay open on the console. Dated August 2024. In trembling Cyrillic script, it read, "It watches through the steam. The humming is louder now. I saw Anatoly again, but he died in '86. Clara turned to the screens. The cracked, dead monitors began to flicker. A figure appeared on one of them. Clara. Standing still. Inside the same room. But the image was live. Only Clara hadn't moved. "That's not me," she whispered. Their flashlights began to dim. One by one. Elias looked pale. "Something's leaking into our suits." Clara started filming again, breathing heavily. Her lens caught movement behind Olivia, a figure in a decontamination suit, head turned unnaturally sideways, standing at the end of the corridor. But when she looked, it was gone. Then Olivia screamed. She clutched her side, skin bubbling beneath the suit. She fell to her knees, coughing dark fluid. Elias knelt to help her, then froze. Behind her, on the soot-covered wall, a handprint appeared, pressing from the other side. "Run," Alex whispered. "Now." They fled through the broken corridor, deeper into the dark. A blast of static burst from Clara's camera mic. Then silence. They turned around. Elias was gone. No footsteps. No sound. Just absence. "He was right behind us," Clara sobbed. They retraced their steps, but the corridor had changed. Turned. The layout was impossible. Doors appeared where none had been. Soviet warning signs were scratched out, replaced by symbols none of them recognized. And then came the humming. Low at first. Mechanical. But beneath it, something human. A voice. Speaking backwards. They found the surveillance room. Somehow, it still had power. Flickering monitors displayed live feeds, but none matched the building's layout. One screen showed Elias, standing alone, smiling, inside the core chamber. Another showed Olivia, still alive but whispering something in a voice not hers. Then Clara began bleeding from her eyes. She collapsed. Alex dragged her toward the main tunnel. He carried her up rusted stairs, into an upper chamber, where sunlight should have bled in. But there was only black. Alex surfaced alone. Rescue teams found him a mile beyond the exclusion zone, barefoot, shaking, mumbling in broken Ukrainian, a language he'd never learned. Olivia was found 2 days later, wandering near Pripyat Hospital, silent, bloodless, teeth missing. She never spoke again. Clara and Elias were never recovered. Ukrainian authorities sealed the duct the group used. The footage was confiscated. Dmitry Antonov disappeared. His apartment was found ransacked, papers burned, computer smashed. All that remained was a final, handwritten note. They are not ghosts. They are echoes. What bled in that night never bled out. Radiation levels around Reactor 4 spiked inexplicably for 3 days following the incident. And every year, on April 26th, exactly at 1:23 a.m., the minute the explosion occurred, cameras in the zone flicker to static. Security systems glitch. And from deep inside Reactor 4, microphones pick up a low, humming sound. Like an old reactor warming up. But it's not machinery. It's breathing. The shadows of Chernobyl still linger in the mind, a place where the dead never quite rest, and where echoes of tragedy warp the very fabric of reality. But some horrors don't stay confined to one land, one disaster, or one set of ghosts. From the frozen ruins of Ukraine, we now turn to a very different kind of darkness. Welcome to Story 6. Paris. The city of light, love, and art, a place where history breathes through every street and stone. But beneath its glittering surface lies a world most never see, a vast, hidden labyrinth carved deep under the city, where millions of bones rest in endless tunnels. The catacombs of Paris, a silent graveyard of the forgotten. They say it's a place of quiet rest. But some say the dead here aren't peaceful. Tonight, 5 friends will descend into this underworld, chasing thrills and viral fame. What they don't know is that some secrets refuse to stay buried, and some voices from the past are eager to be heard. If you ever find yourself near Place Denfert-Trochereau, remember this warning: some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Beneath the vibrant lights and bustling streets of Paris lies a city of the dead, the catacombs. Stretching for hundreds of kilometers, a labyrinthine graveyard holds the remains of 6 million souls. For centuries, these tunnels have been sealed to the living, a resting place meant to stay undisturbed. But some places don't want to be left alone. In October 2023, 5 friends, Lucas, Adriana, Elias, Sarah, and Felix, fueled by thrill-seeking and the lure of online fame, slipped past the rusted gates near Place Denfert-Trochereau. Their plan: to explore the forbidden catacombs, film their descent, and prove their bravery. They carried high-powered flashlights, cameras, and bravado, but none were prepared for what waited beneath the city of lights. Their descent was at first like stepping into a ghost story. Damp, narrow tunnels lined with bones, skulls stacked in grotesque patterns, walls etched with faded warnings and cryptic messages left by those who vanished before them. The air was thick with dust and something else, a metallic scent that made their mouths dry. As they ventured deeper, the catacombs seemed to breathe, the silence broken only by their footsteps and the echo of dripping water. Elias joked, "It's just bones, nothing alive down here," but the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. Hours passed. The tunnels began to twist and fold, maps no longer made sense. GPS devices failed. Cell phones died. Flashlights flickered. Then came the whispers. At first, soft, like a breeze brushing through the bones. Names murmured just beyond comprehension, luring them further in. Sarah stopped suddenly, eyes wide and fixed on a wall. "Did you hear that? Someone's crying." They laughed nervously, but Lucas's camera caught the shadow, a figure in tattered 18th century clothing, pale and hollow-eyed, standing silently before vanishing into the darkness. The whispers escalated into voices, pleading, angry, desperate. "Help us." The catacombs shifted. Corridors they'd passed vanished, replaced by walls stacked impossibly high with bones. Blood began to seep from cracks in the stone, thick and dark, pooling at their feet. The chilling realization hit them: this place was alive, but not with anything human. Adriana screamed as spectral hands clawed at her legs. Lucas yanked her free, but her eyes had lost their light, now filled with terror and something else, possession. The friends reached a vast chamber, an ancient crypt illuminated by flickering blue flames. On a stone altar lay a beating human heart, slick with fresh blood. Ghostly figures materialized, victims of a forgotten massacre during the French Revolution. Prisoners, thrown alive into these tunnels to die slowly in the dark. Their faces twisted in eternal agony, their voices weaving a tapestry of betrayal, blood, and vengeance. Felix collapsed, skin torn by invisible claws, bleeding from his fingertips. Sarah's screams echoed as cold fingers passed through her chest, freezing her breath. Elias, desperate, stabbed a bone shard into one spirit, but it only brought a cruel curse. Their paths disappeared. The labyrinth grew ever darker and more hostile. Adriana, now possessed by the ghosts, recited the massacre's horrors in broken French, names, places, betrayals, and a curse binding them forever beneath the city. One by one, the friends were consumed by shadow and blood. Only Lucas remained, camera still rolling. He found himself in a crypt with a chained prisoner, mouth sewn shut, eyes pleading. The prisoner's voice echoed in his mind, begging for release. Lucas's screams faded as hands dragged him into darkness. Weeks later, rescue teams found abandoned gear and a single trail of footprints, no sign of the five. The catacombs remained silent, but on quiet nights, locals hear dripping blood and whispering voices beneath Paris. And if you dare enter, you might hear a new voice join the chorus, pleading for help, forever trapped in the city of bones. As the last whispers fade beneath the city of light, and the shadows of the forgotten souls retreat into silence, darkness stretches far beyond Paris. Somewhere else, hidden from sight yet no less haunted, another place waits, its secrets buried deep, its horrors lurking just beneath the surface. Prepare yourself, because the nightmare is far from over. Welcome to Story 7. They say the best for last. The final secret buried beneath the shifting sands, the darkest horror whispered only when the desert winds die and silence falls like a shroud. Samra, a small, forgotten city deep in the Moroccan desert, where endless dunes stretch to the horizon and the sun scorches the earth by day, but at night, something far colder stirs beneath the surface, something older than time itself. The locals speak in hushed tones of the Al-Alarwa, the people of the spirits, restless souls bound to the desert, cursed to wander forever, seeking vengeance on the living who forgot their blood-soaked history. Yusuf knew these stories growing up, told to him by his grandmother Fatima in the flickering firelight. She was a healer, a keeper of secrets, and the last to walk the old desert paths between Samra and the ruins of the ancient fortress of Qasr el-Rima. But when Fatima fell ill, her skin pale as bone and eyes clouded with fear, Yusuf's skepticism crumbled. One night, she whispered, "The dead are rising. The curse awakens. You must go to Qasr el-Rima, the old fortress by the desert's edge. There you will face the truth." Clutching her final breath and a tattered map scrawled in ancient script, Yusuf set out alone beneath a moonless sky. The desert air was bone dry, the silence so thick it pressed against his chest like a physical weight. As he approached the ruins of Qasr el-Rima, the ground trembled faintly, dust swirling in unnatural spirals. The air smelled of iron and decay. He lit a lantern, revealing broken stones stained crimson, and footprints soaked in dark, congealed blood leading into a collapsed crypt. Suddenly, a shriek pierced the night, high, ragged, and filled with agony. From the shadows, figures emerged, twisted, half-rotted bodies draped in ancient burial cloth, eyes glowing with a baleful red light. The Al-Alarwa had come. They circled Yusuf, their voices a chorus of rage and sorrow. Betrayed, murdered, forgotten. One specter, a woman with flesh hanging from her jawbone, reached out, touching his chest with icy fingers that burned like fire. Yusuf staggered as visions flooded his mind, a massacre centuries old, when the city's rulers slaughtered a tribe accused of witchcraft, burying them alive beneath the sands to hide the crime. The spirits were the remnants of that tribe, cursed never to rest, their blood screaming for justice. Yusuf screamed as he fell to his knees, blood dripping from invisible wounds, the desert floor slick with gore. The ghosts pulled him into the crypt's dark maw, where walls were smeared with dried blood and bones. Inside, the air was thick with whispers of curses and dark magic. The leader of the spirits, a towering figure with eyes like burning coals, leaned close. "Join us, or leave to carry our torment forever." Desperation burned in Yusuf's chest. He vowed to free them, but at a terrible cost. Returning to Samra, his body marked by spectral burns and bleeding wounds, Yusuf sought out the oldest relics, cursed talismans, blood-stained scrolls, and forbidden incantations. With each ritual, the city's nights grew darker. Shadows lengthened, screams echoed in the wind, and the Al-Alarwa grew stronger, possessing the weak, twisting the living into vessels of their rage. Villagers vanished, their blood found smeared on the desert sands in grotesque symbols. One night, Fatima appeared to Yusuf in a fevered dream, her voice hollow, "The curse feeds on blood. It must be fed, or it will consume us all." The final ritual demanded sacrifice, blood from a living heir of the cursed tribe. Yusuf's own veins screamed as the desert itself seemed to thirst. On the night of the new moon, beneath a sky black as pitch, Yusuf led the villagers to the ancient burial grounds. The ground ruptured with writhing shadows and shrieks as the Al-Alarwa clawed their way free, their forms grotesque and dripping with gore. The battle was a nightmare of blood and bone, screams tearing through the night as Yusuf chanted the forbidden words. One by one, villagers fell, flesh torn, blood pooling in crimson lakes beneath the cold stars. In the final moment, Yusuf plunged his own dagger into his chest, blood spilling like a river onto the cursed earth. The spirits' howls turned to anguished silence as their forms dissolved into dust carried by the desert wind. But the cost was terrible. Samra lay in ruin. The blood-soaked sands would never forget. And sometimes, when the wind howls just right, travelers swear they see ghostly figures wandering the dunes, waiting, watching, hungry still. Because in the desert, the dead never truly rest. As we close this journey through the shadows of our world, remember, horror isn't always where we expect it. From the dark alleys of Italy's mafia underworld, where blood and betrayal stain the night, to the radioactive ghosts haunting the ruins of Chernobyl, whispering secrets no living soul should hear. From the eerie streets of Paris, where centuries-old spirits bleed through the cracks of history, to the endless, unforgiving deserts of Morocco, where the restless dead claw their way from the sands for justice that can never be granted. From the chilling whispers beneath the foggy hills of Bedgelert and Snowdonia, Wales, where bones lie buried under centuries of silence, to the haunted shores of Brighton, where shadows stir in the night. And far away in Castrati, where the witch's curse still lingers, twisting fates and haunting lives with dark magic no one dares speak aloud. Each place holds its own nightmare, a haunting reminder that some horrors are buried deep, waiting patiently for the night. They say the best for last. And perhaps, after all these tales, you're wondering what waits for you when the lights go out. Be careful where you wander. Because sometimes, the dead don't just rest. They wait. And they're never truly gone. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and above all, stay alive.